had 50,000 immigrants pour in from Morocco to Spain in their province called Ceuta that they control, and 34 have already died. Interestingly, half have already returned. I'm going to tell you why all of this happened, give you a couple of reasons, and a surprising country that might be involved. Now, if you're thinking, hey, is that the same country we're always talking about? Well, we'll find out in a minute, isn't it? Okay, so first, let me show you what's going on here so you have a sense of how this is working, and then I want to tell you the reasons behind it. So look at Ceuta on a map here. So even though it is part of Spain, it's actually in North Africa. And so it's right next to Morocco. It's disputed territory. Morocco has said for a long time that they think it's theirs. And so could the Moroccan government have been involved in instigating things there? Well, that's almost certain, as we're about to show you. But you see, it's not connected to the mainland in Europe, but since it is part of Spain and hence technically part of Europe, people that are there and have legal citizenship can go anywhere in the EU. So it is a very relevant place to be, especially if you gain citizenship. Okay, now let me show you how people are pouring into that area. And this is from the Wall Street Journal. They did a good job of showing you. So the area is up on the north there. You see the dotted line. And a lot of people rushed through on land, but a lot came through the sea, and that's where unfortunately 34 of them died. But there's a reason why they went through the sea. I'll explain that to you in a second as well. But did people just wake up one day and go, hey, you know what? I think I'll bum rush Spain. Probably not. More likely to be organized. In fact, there's videos like this that we want to show you that shows you that literally people were brought in by the truckloads. So people don't randomly walk into a truck and then walk out and then rush into Spain, especially with police that are watching them. So there's no question this is organized, and it appears that there's almost no question that the Moroccan government is at least allowing it to happen, if not encouraging it to happen, but it does appear to be encouraging. So what are the possible reasons why that might be? Well, that's what I wondered, and I'm sure you're wondering why it's happening all of a sudden. So let's try to dive into it. First, we start with the Wall Street Journal. Spain's hold on Ceuta has long been a point of friction with Morocco, they explain. Morocco doesn't formally recognize it as Spanish territory. At times it has dropped controls on its side of the border, allowing people to surge forward and overwhelm border defenses in Ceuta. So this is a tactic that Morocco has used before, including as late as 2021 over different disputes they've had. So now this is done on a much larger scale than in the past, but it's not like the Moroccan government's above it. They've done it before, and like I said, almost certainly involved in some way now. So Wall Street Journal continues. This time, analysts who study the region suggest Morocco may have loosened its border controls as a warning shot to Spain after Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez showed a desire to improve relations with Algeria, Morocco's historic rival for influence on Africa's northwest coast. So that's a plausible reason right there. Might be Algeria. Okay, they're angry about Spain's relationship with Algeria, but there are other possibilities. Moroccan lawmakers have said the influx was more likely to have been triggered by a recent Spanish Supreme Court ruling that made it more difficult to turn back migrants if they arrive by sea. Okay, so that's a potential reason as to why now. So Spain's courts rule, and then people go. But again, if it was not organized, it would be a little burst and another burst and a couple people and a couple of families, and maybe a couple hundred people. But it certainly would not be an organized 50,000 person basically raid, right? But it's certainly the Supreme Court decision there in Spain could have made a difference, and definitely in how they arrived through the water, because if they go through the water, there was a special ruling saying that they're more likely to gain citizenship. So that gets into the details of the Spanish court system, but relevant as to how they arrived, but maybe not necessarily as to why they arrived. So one more from the Wall Street Journal. They explained that still other European countries are nervous. France said it was tightening security at its border with Spain, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said her country might consider suspending the Schengen rules. And the Schengen rules are what allow people to go anywhere they want within the European Union. So they are saying from now on, at least Italy is beginning to wonder if that should not apply to Spain. France is closing its borders with Spain. So this has had dramatic effect on Spain, and it's hurt Spain in a lot of different ways. So now, as we told you, one possibility is just Morocco's randomly mad at them and over Algeria. There's a second possibility. Does it involve Kazakhstan? Well, of course it does. No, I'm kidding. Of course it's about Israel. Unfortunately, I didn't think so, but we have overwhelming evidence, which I'm going to share with you in a second. But first, John, before we get into if it's Israel, what do you make of all of this? Relatively normal? Hey, yay, immigrants going to Spain. There's nothing wrong with it, or all of this is problematic. What's your take?
I mean, none of it seems like totally normal in any way. The sheer numbers, the fact that it occurred basically inside of a 24-hour period is unlike anything that I've seen. Bearing in mind that I will acknowledge what very few people talking about this topic in the news today won't acknowledge. I know basically nothing about that. I didn't even know that Spain had this sort of city that they control right there. So I'm learning about this in real time as everyone else covering the story is. But yeah, the fact that it happened in such a short period of time makes some of the explanations, as you pointed out, hard to believe. Like the Supreme Court decision, okay, I could see that having effects over time, but that would have to filter through. And even if it led to a bunch of people in different countries wanting to come through, they all got there on the same day. That doesn't really make sense to me. None of those explanations necessarily make sense. Just the sheer quantity all coming at once, that dozens would literally die, would be trampled to death or drown in a sea of other people swimming. And that's, like, it's easy for us to focus on the politics, and we should, because going forward, that's what's going to matter. But that's a horror movie that basically we saw acted out with dozens of people dying just for a chance to get through. That said, you can't overwhelm a small city with more than its actual population of migrants inside of a 24-hour period. That clearly isn't tenable. The entire thing is an absolute disaster. It's also fascinating when you showed that video. Like, obviously, when Donald Trump and Republicans talk about border crossings at our southern border, they often talk about it almost exclusively through the lens of this is an organized thing, that they're emptying out their prisons, they're emptying out their asylums, and they're all being sent, rather than it being an organic thing where people are coming in every day. And there's many different reasons for many different populations drawn from decades of American foreign policy and the economic devastation of the area and everything. And it feels like there's more evidence in one day for this one than I've seen presented by Republicans for the American southern border in years of them talking about it. And so, yeah, none of those explanations make sense to me. Maybe the next one will, though. What do you got? Yeah.
So just to point out a couple of things there. Yeah. So every accusation is a confession. Right. So if we're organizing, or Israel's organizing, mass migration events, they might assume that others are as well. Like, oh, well, then Mexico must be doing it, or Nicaragua must be doing it, but not necessarily. So, all right, so let's dive into what the Israeli papers are talking about. Because if you want to know what's going on, don't turn to American media. They will lie to you 100% on Israel's behalf on almost every instance. But if you go to the Israeli press, they're actually quite terrific. So, and part of the reason why they're so good at getting us information is because a lot of their local officials and politicians and policymakers brag about how well they've done in manipulating certain situations to get what Israel wants at the cost to others, including in this article at Ynet, where the person writing the article is in favor of all the actions that I'm about to read you that Israel has done, like, attaboy, way to get Spain. Now, if you're wondering, wait a minute, wasn't there somebody who said something about Spain? Oh, right, Netanyahu. Remember when he said this?
ישראל לא תשתוק מול מי שתוקף אותנו. ספרד הכפישה את גיבורנו, את חיילי צה"ל, חיילי הצבא המוסרי ביותר בעולם. ולכן הנחיתי היום לסלק את נציגי ספרד ממרכז התיאום בקריית גת, לאחר שספרד בחרה שוב ושוב להתייצב נגד ישראל. מי שתוקף את מדינת ישראל במקום את משטרי הטרור, מי שעושה זאת לא יהיה שותף שלנו לגבי עתיד האזור. אני לא מוכן לסבול את הצביעות הזאת ואת העוינות הזאת. אני לא מתכוון לאפשר לאף מדינה לנהל נגדנו מלחמה מדינית בלי לשלם על כך מחיר מיידי.
So for those of you who are listening to the podcast, he said in Hebrew, and he always talks in Hebrew when he wants to hide his message from the Western press. Not that they'd report it anyway, but he said that Spain will pay an immediate price for daring to care about the Palestinians and saying that maybe they shouldn't be slaughtered. He was enraged. We're to slaughter anyone we like, okay? And if Spain objects, there'll be consequences. Well, now let's check out the consequences. Amin Yayoub wrote in Ynet Global, Spain's refusal to allow the United States access to Ceuta and Moroccan military bases during the Iran campaign, its consistent failure to meet NATO defense spending targets, and Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's confrontational posture towards the Trump administration have collectively generated something rare in North African affairs: a genuine crack in Spain's strategic armor over Ceuta and Melilla. And into that crack, Morocco's most consequential new partner, Israel, is uniquely positioned to press. So they wrote this a little while back, previewing what might come next. And Melilla is another city that Spain controls in North Africa. And they're saying, well, look, there's some issues that America has with, Spain paying NATO dues, but mainly, how dare they not allow America to use its bases to bomb Iran on behalf of Israel? How dare they talk about the Palestinians as if they're humans? There's going to be consequences. So how does this actually get done, though? How does it get executed? So they explain in March 2026, Michael Rubin of the American Enterprise Institute, writing through the Middle East Forum, called on Trump administration to formally recognize Ceuta and Melilla as occupied Moroccan territory, branding Spain, quote, a colonial power running colonies across the Strait of Gibraltar. So now Israel is a settler colony that has colonized the Middle East, and it continues to attack and take land. But when Spain pointed out the occupation and the brutal treatment of the Palestinians, they go, oh yeah, all of a sudden we.
Cenk, this whole narrative you're trying to pull isn't working out very well. Because if Israel was not involved in this particular situation, you would be very likely to actually be on the side of Morocco, because there are two tiny little enclaves inside Moroccan territory. But because Israel is involved, now you're taking the side of Spain. Very interesting, but I fucking know you. I know how you think. You're siding with Spain on this only because Israel is against Spain. But if Israel was on Spain's side, you would be shitting on Spain. You're just anti-Israel. That's what it comes down to. This whole thing isn't about Ceuta. You don't know what side you're on in terms of the Morocco-Spain side. You're unwilling to take sides there, okay? But since Israel is tied to Morocco, you're on Spain's side. Period. End of story. It's so clear. Because if you look at the map, it's pretty damn clear to me that it's part of Moroccan territory, okay? Now, I don't think any of that matters. When it comes to land, whoever controls the land militarily, it belongs to them. If Morocco wants to fight Spain for that territory, that's on them to do it. And if they defeat the army in Ceuta and Melilla, however it's called, that's it. It's now fully Moroccan territory. If Spain wants to invade Morocco and take over Morocco, well, now it's called Morocco Quetta, whatever they would call it. And if the Moroccans take over the entirety of Spain and they want to call it Al-Andalus again, they won. It is what it is. That's the way the world works, you stupid idiot. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments. Follow me at Rafi the Realtor for all of your real estate needs in South Florida. And you can go to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description or pinned comment. Right there. Check it out. And I would appreciate any support you give. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you'll tune into the next one. Until next time, peace.